Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Maui Mallard and Col Shadow, brought to us by Sunsoft. Maui Mallard and Col Shadow has you playing as Donald Duck, starring as the character Maui Mallard, going to Hawaii to try to get a idol back. The story is a little bit confusing for sure on the Game Boy version, as this is far from the better version of the game. It was released in 1998. Couple of years actually after the Genesis and Super Nintendo versions of the game. The first level of the game is Mojo Mansion. In it we're playing as Maui Mallard. We're going to go through this door right at the very beginning and move over to this side of the room. The game is not optimized well. Jumping is extremely weird and very, very floaty. Every time you jump, it also slows the game down a little bit, so it takes a bit to get used to for sure. In the first level, you're only as Maui Mallard, though in the next level, once you get the yin-yang symbols, you can transform into Col Shadow. You do have limited ammo, but usually I don't run out of it too much. I don't have to worry about firing at too many of the enemies. It's mostly about avoiding them. In this room, climb up onto the platforms, watching out for the different cloud enemies spitting at you. Move your way along these individual platforms on the top part here. You can do a big leap over to the right and make it to the next door. Here we have to start climbing up this large organ. You're going to use the various pipes in the organ to blast your way up to the top. It's actually pretty fun to do. At the top of the screen, along with the ammo you do have your health meter, which is represented by that square bar next to your lives. When that fills up all the way solid, then you end up losing a life. Here we have our first boss, this giant spider. All we're going to do is back away and then turn around and fire, and then keep repeating that process over and over again as it's jumping up and down. Takes a little bit, but it won't be too long before you're hitting it enough and moving on to level 2. Next up is the Ninja Training Grounds. Here we're going to go over to the right side. We're going to transform into Col Shadow. As Col Shadow, we're able to hook onto these and swing ourselves back and forth, and this allows us to get up to higher platforms, and we have to do quite a bit of it throughout the course of the game. There's just something about the early Game Boy ports of Disney games that were a lot better than the later ones. These ones that came out after 1995 or so just didn't get quite as much effort as some of the earlier Game Boy titles did. Here we get inside this giant statue, and we're going to walk over to the left side very slowly, but bust through a couple of walls. Eventually you'll come to the end and be launched out of the giant statue. Here we have to use our stick, and we're going to use it to kind of get ourselves up. It's very hard to explain how some of the jumping works in this game, and holding down the button to use the stick as kind of like leverage to get higher. In the next area, we're going to avoid this enemy and then get inside another one of the statues and walk over to the right side, once again walking through a few walls. From there, we're going to work our way up here. You can be Maui Mallard and just climb up the rope, but as Col Shadow, you can't just climb up, so you have to use your stick to do it. You can switch back, though, between the characters at any point that you want to. Here we have to use a series of these hooks to swing our way across. It can be a little bit difficult, but usually I don't have too much trouble getting my thing to actually hook on to them. Our next boss has us taking on this giant statue, which will end up slowly kind of moving through it and giving us a different enemy to fight each time. Every time you take out one of the enemies, it then goes to the next section and drops another enemy. Once you've defeated them all, though, that's the end of the boss fight, and we can move on to the next level. The next level is Mudrake Mayhem. As we begin the stage, we're going to head over to the right side here. You can grab onto these and make your way over to the right. Just keep jumping between them. Holding down the button, you'll be able to attach yourself to them. Though if you miss, don't get too upset because, like I said, it's just not the greatest. Here we're going to push kind of through this, and this will warp us to the next section. That is where you're supposed to go, though, by the way. Like I said, the game is just kind of weird in some of the way it does things. We're going to work our way up this ramp, grabbing the item here. Then work our way back and over to the right side. Make your way down here and over to the right side. You can take care of some enemies from a distance if you need to, but shouldn't have too much trouble. You can also grab this nice milkshake so you can replenish some of the health that you've lost. Here we have our next boss encounter. Once we get up here, it's a tiki guy. He's going to move very slowly. We're going to step away, fire a few shots, then get away from it, fire a few shots. Duck underneath any of the spears that he does throw out. Thankfully, if we're far enough away, we should be able to see the spear coming to us and duck in time. Once he's taken care of, we're moving on to the next level. In the next stage, we have to work our way upwards, which is easier said than done. Even climbing up as Maui Mallard can be very difficult and weird. I kind of just mash and hold the button sometimes, and I'm able to kind of launch up the ropes. It can be a bit frustrating for sure, trying to climb your way up to the top here. I'm going to jump up the left side, and that allows me to get up a few platforms easily, and then reach the top on the right, and go to the next screen. Here we have this bungee cord attached to us. When we jump down, we'll be pulled back up. We're just going to work our way, though, along the top set of platforms, blasting enemies as we do so, and grab some health replenishment if we need it. Drop on down here, and then you want to walk over to the right side, and then jump back up. I'm going to take out this enemy just through the wall so it'll be easier when I go over here. Right up here, we get to the next boss fight. We're going to drop down here, stand right here, and then just time our shots to hit this frog. The frog can't move, can't do anything else. All it does is stick out its tongue. So as long as we stay away from it, we have no problem being able to hit it without it hitting us. And we're moving on to the next level. The next level, we're going to begin and watch out for the enemy right away. You can take him out or just jump through him and take a little bit of damage. We're going to jump up here and move our way through the floor using that like jet stream type thing. Here we're going to transform back into Col Shadow, that way we can just grab onto these hooks and move our way through. Climb on up here and then grab a hold of the ones at the top and swing your way over here. We're going to jump over here. This will take us to the next section technically, but kind of just weird how it does that in between, in the middle of a level. But we're going to jump up here and it'll take us to the next boss fight, another little weird transition. We're going to jump up and attack the boss at first and then go over to the opposite side of the boss. It can be difficult to dodge this boss. A lot of times you can wait for it to come to you and then kind of bait it and jump through this thing and then over it. When you're on the other side though, try to get it above you, and then when it's going over you, you run underneath its tail. The tail itself doesn't actually hurt you, it's mainly just the main body of the boss. So you can go through part of the tail and still be able to escape unharmed. On to the next stage here, the Realm of the Dead. Scary name, but not too bad of a level here. Gonna start swinging our way across the gap. You can jump between the enemies or take them out, whichever one you prefer. Climb on up using either Col Shadow or using Maui Mallard. The Maui Mallard is a lot easier, but you can actually get up as Col Shadow by doing kind of a weird turn and jump. Here we make it to pretty much near the end of the game. We have one little section after this, but we have to make our way up to the top, protecting this idol from the various spirits that are going to try to grab it. It moves extremely slowly, so you have to climb up to the top, dealing with the ghost spirit guys each time you make it to them. Don't go too far though, or else you will end up losing a life if you get too far away from the idol. Thankfully, you have a pretty good jump to get up through most of these platforms without having to jump too much back and forth. You will have to do it a little bit, of course, though. Just keep focusing on your climbing. Eventually you'll have to grab onto these hooks using Col Shadow. This is the end of the section though, just gotta make it up a few more jumps. And once you reach the top, you may have to wait a little while for the idol to show up, but once it does, we can move on to the last level of the game, which is pretty much just a boss fight. Here we go with the Mojo Stronghold. We're going to start by immediately swinging our way up. Using these various hooks in the background, we make our way to the top and get ready for the final boss fight. You're probably going to get hit by this electricity right away. This lightning strike ends up always getting me. Before the final boss, we're going to just watch out for the boss, jumping over it each time it ends up lunging forward. Hit detection isn't the greatest in the game, so you need to time your jump accordingly. Once you destroy the first form, though, the second form begins, which is the same thing, but just more of it. Keep firing and jumping over the boss as it lunges towards you, firing out its projectile. Once you deliver enough hits, though, to it, you can enjoy the ending to Maui Mallard and Col Shadow on the Nintendo Game Boy. Kind of a weird ending. You end up dying and they name the island after you. It's not exactly the same ending as the other versions of the game. You then get a congratulations screen as it slowly scrolls off. That's followed up by the credits as they slowly start to make their way up to the top. Maui Mallard and Col Shadow on the Game Boy, not a great version of the game. I highly recommend checking out the other ones if you never have, but this is one version that I've always wanted to best, so I wanted to learn it and make sure I completed it for a video. After the thanks for playing screen, we then get our copyright, and that is it. With it, it'll wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.